The bell at West Ridge Elementary sounded like thunder trapped inside metal. I stood under the covered pickup lane holding my son's small Spider-Man umbrella because the sky over Florida had been black all afternoon, like it was waiting to punish someone. My 7-year-old son Liam kept bouncing on his toes beside me, wiping water off his cheeks every time the rain misted sideways. He was smiling because today was Friday, and Fridays always felt like tiny freedom for us. That was before my parents decided we were disposable. My sister Harper came out first, waddling like she was carrying royalty instead of to spoiled kids who treated Liam like dirt every chance they got. She rolled her eyes when she saw me. You know Mom and Dad are coming to get us, right? You aren't needed. She smirked. I ignored it. I was used to her mood. She acted like Florida humidity existed just to ruin her hair. Liam whispered, "Can we still get ice cream after Mom? Even if Grandma's here?" I smiled and squeezed his hand. Yes, always ice cream Fridays. His tiny shoulders relaxed like those for words kept his whole childhood glued together. Then the silver SUV pulled up. My parents' car. The same car they refused to let me drive even when I was broke and job hunting for months. My dad rolled the window down halfway like I was a door-to-door scammer. "Harper, put her kids in. Hurry up. We need to get going." He didn't even look at me. He didn't even acknowledge Liam was standing there soaked. Harper shoved her to kids in, slammed the door, shook off rain from her jacket dramatically, and then she looked right at Liam. That umbrella makes him look like a stray trying to look cute so someone will adopt him. My mother laughed from the passenger seat. It was the type of laugh that cuts through bone. I stepped closer. "Dad, wait. Liam is riding with me. We live 30 minutes away. It's pouring. We aren't walking home." Dad finally looked at me. Not lovingly, not even neutral, but like I was a defective box in a warehouse. "Your sister's kids come first today," he said, voice flat. "You know that." He snapped fingers at Liam. "Walk." It builds spine. Liam's face broke. He didn't understand adults could be this cold to kids in real life. "Dad, what the hell are you saying?" I yelled over the sound of rain hitting concrete like nails. My mother leaned toward the window. "If he can't survive walking half an hour in rain, he isn't meant for life," she said calmly like she was talking about a business decision. "Strays walk. That's what he is. You raised a stray." Then they laughed. Yes, they laughed right there outside of an elementary school, while parents behind us honked and stared horrified. Dad drove off with the tires splashing dirty, water directly onto Liam's shoes. I stood frozen while my son cried silently. I lifted him into my arms, umbrella shaking, my hands shaking, my voice burning inside my throat. I couldn't even speak yet because this level of cruelty wasn't normal even for them. This was a new category of evil. We walked to the far corner of the school where buses didn't go. Because I could just collapse in front of everyone. I needed 1 minute of oxygen to stabilize my rage. Liam sobbed into my chest. "Why don't they like me, Mommy? I'm not bad." I kissed his forehead and whispered in his ear, "You are everything good. They are the ones broken." When we reached home, soaked, shivering, skin sticky from Florida rain, everything inside me changed permanently. This was the exact day I stopped being the daughter fighting for their approval. This was the day I turned into the woman who would end every piece of control they ever thought they had. This wasn't going to be poetic. This wasn't going to be gentle. This wasn't going to be silent revenge. This was going to be real revenge. And they were not ready. I carried Liam into our little apartment and shut the door like it was the hatch of a ship. That needed sealing. He clung to my shirt, small fists gripping fabric that smelled like wet school bus rubber and rain. I told him to change into dry clothes, made him a hot chocolate, and watched him with a kind of fierce, frightened tenderness I'd never known I was capable of before. His breathing evened. He hummed a silly song about pirates while I held my phone and tried to stop shaking. The first thing I did wasn't post anything. It wasn't call family. It was practical, surgical. The way I'd learned to be when life demanded results instead of drama. I opened my phone and started recording. Not a theatrical clip. A time-stamped calm recording with short statements. At 2:18 p.m. on Friday, West Ridge Elementary pickup. My parents left with Harper as children and drove off while my 7-year-old son was standing under his umbrella. They told him to walk home in the rain. I recorded the audio. Then I sent the file to my email with the subject line, "Pickup incident, time-stamped evidence." Emailing myself created a time-locked paper trail that couldn't be fluffed away later, as she said. Then I texted the school's office line and asked for camera footage from the pickup lane. The secretary replied with an automatic message about requests, but I pressed. I walked to the front office, dripping rain all over the welcome mat, and I asked to see the footage in person. Her face changed the minute she heard the words. My son was left to walk. She led me, blinking to the monitor room, and rewound the clip. The camera captured the whole thing. Harper's kids in the SUV, my parents laughing, my son's umbrella, Dad waving, and the car peeling off. I filmed the screen with my phone. That video would be time-stamped by the school system. That was steal. I took the footage straight to the principal. He watched silent, his jaw tightening the longer it played. When it ended, he rubbed his forehead and said, "We can't have this. This is neglect at minimum, and we're obligated to report behavior that endangers a child." He told me they'd defile an incident report and that campus security would be notified to flag any future pickups. I left with a copy of their internal report number, institutional. Wheels began turning. Next, I called my neighbor Mara, a woman with 2 kids from down the hall, who once told me, half joking, that she'd videotape anything that made her blood boil. Mara arrived within the hour with her car's dashcam footage. She'd filmed my parents' license plate as the SUV splashed through puddles. She also said her husband saw the whole scene and would write a witness statement. That neighbor alliance mattered, because community corroboration is harder for a family to gaslight away. I thanked her and sent everything. School footage, dashcam clip, my audio statement to a secure cloud folder with a single link I could forward. While Liam colored. On the kitchen table, my hands moved fast. I called the non-emergency police line and gave a careful factual account. The dispatcher asked for names, plate numbers, and whether my child was safe now. I told her Liam was safe. He was with me. I gave her the license plate, and she logged a neglect referral that would be cross-checked with the school report. They told me an officer might call to take a formal statement later. That was fine. I wanted everything official. Then I called Harper. I didn't want to yell. I wanted to understand if she'd realized what had happened. She picked up on the second ring. Breezy. "Oh, you made it home. Sorry, the car was running late. We had to stop for a snack. Dad's in a rush." Her tone was the same threaded with entitlement tone she always used. I asked about the kids and whether she'd noticed my son being left behind. There was a long, awkward pause, and then you overreact. "Danny, we were trying to teach him to cope. You're dramatic." My stomach nodded. She was doubling down. I hung up and realized Harper wouldn't help. Not willingly. She'd already chosen family theater over basic decency. So I moved to the only angle they never thought I'd use, their vanity. My parents lived to be admired in our little social circle. Neighborhood barbecues, church board meetings, golf club charity events. They were small-town aristocrats who fed off polite applause. They had reputations built on smiling photos and polite speeches, and they curated it carefully. That was my leverage. If their performance of respectability could be threatened by institutions that demanded standards, they'd panic. And I had the receipts now. I emailed the neighborhood HOA board politely, factually with the time-stamped video attached and a short message for your records. Incident at school pickup involving parents who live in our community. I believe this is relevant for anyone who volunteers or supervises. Neighborhood children. I didn't demand anything. I simply placed the evidence where the HOA is. Safety committee would see it. Later that day, an HOA administrator called me and asked to meet about the complaint. They told me they'd temporarily suspend any volunteer privileges pending review. I didn't celebrate. I was methodical. Privilege removal was slow poison. Then I called the coordinator of the Sunday school where Dad volunteered. She answered with clipped concern. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for anything that endangers children," she said. I asked her whether volunteers had to pass a conduct review. She explained the process and asked if I would be willing to provide my statement. I agreed. She thanked me and said she'd place a hold on Dad's name in their volunteer roster until the review. It wasn't a headline blow, but it was a cut to the places where Dad got to strut his moral authority. He'd been very proud to teach Sunday school. Being removed from that stage would bruise him in a place he cared about. As these institutional channels began to hum, I built a personal safety net. I contacted Elena, my friend, who had once told me, "If they ever push you out, come to me." Elena agreed to pick Liam up from school the next week and be an emergency contact. I gave the school a signed letter authorizing only me and Elena to take Liam home. I filed a formal parental directive with the school. No child release without my written consent or the presence of a city-registered guardian. That was legal muscle, and it would complicate any future attempts by my parents to manipulate pickup dynamics. At night, I sat across from Liam and told him a simple truth. "We do what's right now. Mommy will fix it." He nodded, trusting me like I was an island. He drew a wet crayon sun on a paper plate and handed it to me like an offering. I swallowed hard and kept building. I also began to think 3 steps ahead because that's how you trap predators. You think like a chess player, not a fighter. My parents' pattern had always been to gaslight and then amplify. When cornered, they'd go performative, calling neighbors, weeping at churches, acting like victims. If I could predict that, I could prepare countermeasures. So I did something smaller and smarter. I quietly set up meetings with the people who could reject their performance. I met with the youth, pastor, and simply said, "I want the truth about what happened." I met with the HOA safety chair and asked for a written acknowledgement that the video had been received. I emailed the school district liaison and asked them to flag my file for priority response. If any pickup irregularity reoccurred, each of these tiny administrative ticks tightened a legal web around them. That didn't rely on my shouting. I also made my own social move that they'd never see coming. I texted my cousin Ava, tame, formal, and asked her to pass a quiet note to their friend group. If anyone sees Dad or Mom volunteering with children soon, please ask to see their clearance. We're documenting a serious safety issue and need witness support. Ava hesitated, then replied, "I'll do it." That ripple of quiet social pressure would make them anxious. People who live off applause hate quiet questions. Then came the bait. I needed them to show their pattern again in a place where those same institutions were watching. I didn't set a social trap or a viral ambush. I engineered a scenario that played to their ego and predictably pulled them out into daylight. I posted on the Neighborhood Volunteer Board anonymous account about a sudden kids safety workshop being organized by the school, a session that required volunteer sign-ups from the community. The post asked for experienced community members to assist with child supervision. During a rain drill, I knew they'd jump at the chance to be frontline heroes to reclaim narrative control and be praised. True to form, within a day, Dad called the HOA chair offering to lead the drill. He described himself as experienced with kids. He wanted to be visible. He wanted the stage. And because I'd already slipped the school and HOA the evidence when he signed up, the administrators immediately checked his name against the file. They found the pickup footage and the police referral pending. The volunteer application flagged red. I watched them flounder when the call came from the HOA. "We need to postpone your role pending review." Pride sliced through him like a blade. He texted my sister to intervene. My sister, who'd been smug and untouchable moments before, now found herself between Daddy's ranting and the HOAS procedures. She called me frantic, demanding I withdraw the complaint. I didn't answer. I filed one more card, a formal complaint to the school district as child safety liaison with the dash cam, and the time-stamped footage attached, and a short paragraph. This family leaves a child to walk in a storm. It was concise and unadorned, which made it more lethal. Bureaucracy is not glamorous, but it is efficient and remorseless when you do nothing but feed it facts. By the end of that week, the world I'd pumped into motion, time-stamped evidence, witness statements, school reports, HOA, and church holds, volunteer suspension requests. Neighbor corroboration began to hum and to squeeze. It wasn't an explosion. It was a tightening. Ring. They would feel it in the small public things. The Sunday handbook omission, the pending review notice on a volunteer roster, the chilly calls from people who had once smiled. That's where pride dies. Not with one headline, but when the comfortable applause stops and no one claps for you anymore. The night before I planned to escalate, because escalation is necessary for predators who mistake inertia for permission. I sat with Liam on the couch and read him a comic book while the rain tapped the window like a drum. His head eventually lulled against my shoulder, and he fell asleep in the middle of a page about a tiny robot who always fixed things. I closed the book and promised myself quietly I would not let anyone weaponize my son as wet shoes for their cheap sense of superiority. The trap was set. The next act would not be pretty for them. They came begging 2 days later, not at my door, but at the HOA meeting where the safety committee read the incident report aloud, while the school principal sat in the front row. Dad tried to speak first, voice shaking with fake outrage, but the HOA chair held up the camera stills, and the principal read the school's official complaint into the microphone. Volunteers in the room exchanged looks. The pastor, who once nodded at Dad's moral talks, sat silent in the third row. Mom started to cry and choke out. "We're sorry. Please forgive us." But the apology froze in the air when the youth pastor quietly said, "We cannot allow someone under investigation to supervise children." The Sunday school coordinator confirmed Dad's suspension. The HOA announced a temporary ban on any unsupervised child events involving them, pending the district review. Neighbors who once praised them now avoided eye contact. A few handed me private notes, saying they'd seen the footage and were sorry they'd ever smiled. Harper showed up red-faced and pleading. She demanded I withdraw the complaint. I handed her a printed list, timestamps, witnesses, copies of messages, and watched her face go pale. She begged. Dad begged. Mom begged. They offered performative promises and theatrics about learning and changes in front of a crowd that no longer believed them. I didn't need apologies on a stage. I needed safety. I signed a school form limiting their contact to supervised scheduled visits, only with the principal present, and I made Elena the approved alternate pickup for Liam. I asked for no public altar of forgiveness. I wanted boundaries that held. They left the meeting smaller than ever, mouths open, stripped of their comfortable roles. They were begging for mercy and stunned by how little I gave them, a single line of protection. That would not be ignored. I walked out holding Liam's hand. He kicked a puddle and laughed. The rain had stopped. The worst of it had finally passed. Not because they were sorry, but because the systems I fed with truth had refused to let them hide behind their performance any longer.